wasn't expecting fireworks. I just wanted mashed potatoes and a quiet seat at the table. Instead, I got something else entirely, a front row seat to the realization that I'd been edited out of my own family. My name's Eli. I'm 31. I do back-end work for a logistics software company, not flashy, but it pays the rent and keeps me fed. I live solo in a modest place a bit outside Denver. I've been on my own since college and never really leaned on anyone. I liked it that way. Until recently, I thought my family liked it that way too. Then came that Thanksgiving. Let me set the scene. It's chilly, but not freezing. I'd been looking forward to this dinner. For once, I wasn't swamped with work, and I'd made my mom's favorite brown sugar-glazed carrots. Something small, simple, but from the heart. I drove the 40 minutes to my parents' place upbeat. Expected the usual suspects, my parents, maybe my younger brother Caleb, and if we were lucky, Aunt Janine with her weird cranberry stuffing. I even played a little jazz on the drive over to set the vibe. Pulled into the driveway. First red flag. The car count. Overflowing. Like someone was hosting a wedding reception, not a family dinner. SUVs, sedans, even a food delivery truck out front. Odd, but I figured maybe they just invited a few extra people. I walked up, casserole dish in hand, knocked on the door, waited, knocked again. The lights were on. I could hear laughter and music inside. Felt warm and golden, you know, that cozy holiday noise. But still, no one opened up for a minute. Then the door creaked open. My dad stood there. Blank expression, like I was a door-to-door salesman, not his son. "What are you doing here, Eli?" I blinked, thought maybe it was a joke. I half laughed and held up the dish. "Thanksgiving." He glanced over his shoulder, rubbed the back of his neck. "Thought your mom told you this year's a little different." Now my stomach dropped. "What do you mean, different?" He hesitated. "Just smaller? Low-key? We didn't expect you?" I said nothing. Just stood there. Cold carrots in hand. Still warm inside the foil, but the warmth was fading. Just like mine. He stepped aside slightly. "I'll get your mom." Didn't invite me in. Just turned and walked away. I stood there. Alone. Like some forgotten delivery guy at the wrong house. Then my mom came to the door. She opened it just wide enough for me to see her face, but not the room behind her. "Oh, Eli. We didn't think you were coming. We don't have extra chairs this year." "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Maybe next time, okay?" That was it. No hug, no plate, no happy Thanksgiving. Just we don't have more seats. I looked past her. Through the narrow opening, I could see people. So many people. A full table, dishes clinking. Someone was laughing so hard they coughed. A kid ran past in socks. Plenty of seats, even fold-outs from the garage. "You assumed I wasn't coming." She nodded. "Well, you don't always reply. We figured you had your own thing." I texted her that morning. Literally, that morning. Be there around 4, bringing the carrots. She looked at me like that memory had been wiped from her hard drive. "Well," she said softly, "it's just a full house this year. You understand, right?" I didn't answer, just nodded. I turned, walked back to my car, didn't slam the door, didn't toss the dish. I just placed it gently on the passenger seat and sat there for a while. Silent. I drove home, heated the carrots, and ate them on my couch while watching old YouTube videos. It wasn't about the carrots. It wasn't even about the food. It was about the fact that I walked up to a house that should have felt like mine and got treated like a stranger who showed up at the wrong potluck. And they didn't even pretend. That night, not one text, no call, no, "Sorry, that was weird," just silence. It didn't hurt like a stab. It hurt like a slow leak. Like a part of you didn't even know you relied on just vanished. The next day, someone knocked. It was my cousin Serena. She didn't have to say a word. I saw the look in her eyes. She knew. She handed me a plastic bag of leftovers and said I saved you some. They wouldn't have. We sat on the couch eating turkey sandwiches. She told me everything. Turns out, Caleb, my younger brother, 27, charming, jobless, self-declared entrepreneur, had told people I probably wouldn't come. That I was always distant and never involved. Mom ran with it. Even set up a new seating chart the day before. "I overheard your mom say, 'Let's just keep it peaceful this year,' like you're the chaos." That one hit me. I'm not loud. I'm not dramatic. If anything, I'm the guy who smiles through passive-aggressive comments and brings extra plates so no one has to do dishes. I've sent them money when rent was tight, helped with groceries, bought Caleb a laptop when his startup burned through his savings. But sure, I'm the drama. That was when the switch flipped. I stopped seeing it as a misunderstanding. It wasn't. It was a choice. They chose not to include me. Not because I was mean or absent, but because I wasn't useful that day. I was the helper, not the highlight. They didn't need a helper that day. They needed an audience. And I don't clap on cue. I didn't text them that weekend. Didn't call. I wanted to see what silence felt like on their end. Spoiler, it felt permanent. I wasn't even a blip. Then 5 days later, the real twist. A knock. I looked through the peephole and actually laughed. It was my mom. Not with food or apologies, but with her phone in hand, that tight smile on her face saying, "So about this month's money." She didn't even say hi. Just launched straight into it like we were continuing a conversation that hadn't happened. "So about this month's money." Her voice was soft, like she thought saying it gently would make it less absurd. I stared at her, not with anger, just disbelief. After everything. After leaving me outside their door on Thanksgiving like a forgotten delivery. After pretending I didn't exist. Now she was standing in my living room asking for cash like I was their overdraft protection. I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to see if she'd hear herself. She didn't. She sat down on the arm of my couch like she owned the place and glanced around like she was appraising the decor. "Your place is nice," she said. "Cozy," that fake tone again. Like we were friends who hadn't caught up in a while. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, still saying nothing. That's when she finally paused. "Eli," she said, a bit unsure now. I finally answered. "You really came here to ask for money." Her smile twitched, then faded. "We're in a tight spot. You know that. Your dad's been having trouble picking up hours. And Caleb," I cut her off. "Caleb bought a PS5 last month." Her eyes flicked to the side like she hadn't expected me to bring that up. "That was a gift. From us." I nodded slowly. "Paid for with what Monopoly money?" She opened her mouth, then shut it. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, took my time. Then I came back and said I didn't forget. You know, Thanksgiving. You didn't say I wasn't invited. You just let me walk into that embarrassment on my own. Her face twisted slightly like I was being unreasonable. "We didn't think you'd come. You never really make it a priority." I blinked. "I texted you, but you didn't confirm." "It wasn't a reservation at a restaurant," I said flatly. She stood up now, taller, louder. "You don't get it, Eli. We needed space. Caleb's been going through a lot." There was already tension. We didn't want drama. I laughed. One short, dry sound. "And I'm the drama. The one who pays your bills." She flinched. It wasn't loud, but it landed. "This isn't just about that," she said. "It's about family." I nodded. "Exactly. And you made it very clear I'm not part of yours." She started to protest again, but I wasn't interested in debating my place in their lives like it was up for a vote. I walked over to the door and opened it. "You can go now." She looked stunned. "Eli, you came to ask for money." I said no. That's it. That's the entire conversation. She didn't move. "What about your dad?" "What about him?" "He's been stressed. This won't help." I kept my hand on the doorknob. That's not my responsibility anymore. She stood there for another second, then walked out. No goodbye, no apology. Just silence and the sound of the screen door clicking shut behind her. I thought that would be the end of it. Of course I was wrong. 2 days later, they came back. This time it was a whole production. Mom, Dad, Caleb, all three of them standing on my porch like some discount intervention. Caleb had his arms crossed, trying to look serious, but he was wearing sweatpants and slides. Dad had his lecture face on, the one he used when I was 16 and got a B in physics. Mom was back to her soft, wounded act, hands clasped like she was praying. "Can we come in?" Dad asked. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside enough for them to enter if they wanted to. They did. Caleb sat on the edge of the chair like it was gross. Mom perched back on the couch like last time. Dad stayed standing, pacing a little, then turned to face me like he was about to deliver a monologue. "We're worried about you." That was his opener. Not "we're sorry," not "we messed up." Just concern. For me. I didn't bother hiding the smirk. "I'm fine. You're shutting us out," he said. "You're acting like we're strangers. You treated me like one first." That shut him up for a second. Then Mom jumped in. We were under a lot of pressure. Hosting that many people is hard. Caleb had friends in from out of town. It was just bad timing. I looked at her, then at Caleb. Didn't seem like bad timing for him. He shrugged. "You're always so sensitive, man." "It was just dinner." I tilted my head. "Then why are you all here acting like the world's ending because I stopped sending money?" No one answered that. Dad cleared his throat. "Look, maybe mistakes were made, but that doesn't mean you abandon your family." I nodded slowly. Right, because that's what this is about. Not love, not connection, just obligation. Mom sighed like I was being ridiculous. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I pointed to the door. "So go, make it easier." "Eli," she started, but I held up a hand. "No, we're not doing this dance. I was useful, so I was tolerated. The second I stopped being useful, I was cut out. Now you're back, not because you care, but because you need." Caleb scoffed. "That's harsh." I turned to him. "Harsh is standing in the cold with a casserole while your family laughs without you." He looked away. Dad spoke up again. "We need to find a way through this." "There is no we," I said. "Not anymore." I opened the door again. "You can go now." This time they didn't argue. They left. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, my neighbor, an older guy named Troy, who walks his dog at 6 a.m., knocked on my door and said, "Hey man, your car's got something on it." My stomach dropped. I stepped outside and froze. Egg, splatters of egg. Across the windshield hood roof, bits of shell sticking to the paint. It was like some teenager's prank, except I don't know any teenagers. I did, however, know 3 emotionally unstable adults with a grudge. I didn't yell. I didn't even clean it up right away. I just went back inside, pulled up my building's security camera app, and hit play. Sure enough, there they were. 2 47-AMI, Mom, Dad, Caleb, throwing eggs like it was some twisted family bonding activity. Laughing. My dad had a whole wind-up. Caleb launched one like he was playing baseball. Mom screamed something. I couldn't hear the audio, but she looked genuinely unhinged. I sat there watching it over and over, not because I didn't believe it, because I wanted it to make sense. It didn't. So I called the non-emergency police line, filed a report, sent them the footage. They were polite, probably confused, but I didn't care. Then I called a detailing shop, booked a full clean, sent the invoice straight to my mom's email. No message, just the bill. A few hours later, she texted me, "What the hell, Eli?" I didn't reply. She followed up. "It was just a stupid thing, a joke. Don't blow this up, no apology, just don't make a fuss." Caleb sent a single emoji, a clown face. I blocked him. Dad called. I didn't answer. Then I got a message from a cousin. "Dude, what's going on? Your mom's saying you're having a breakdown." I just replied, "No breakdown, just boundaries." And that was the truth. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was done. There's a difference. Angry people argue, sad people beg. Done people close the door. That was me now. Door closed, locks changed, phone silent. And for the first time in years, I felt something strange. Peace. After the egg incident, I didn't say anything for a while. Not to them, not to anyone. The silence wasn't a tactic. It was just comfortable, calming in a way I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was stuck in some weird loop where I gave everything and got crumbs in return. I didn't even realize how heavy it had all been until it finally lifted. And sure, there were moments, small flashes, where guilt tried to creep in. That little voice whispering they're still your parents. But another voice, louder, now always answered. And what exactly does that mean when they treat you like nothing until your wallet opens? So I let the silence stay. I didn't reply to their texts. I didn't respond when Dad left a voicemail saying this overreaction could damage the family beyond repair. I didn't even flinch when Caleb posted some passive-aggressive story on Instagram with a meme that read, "Some people just love playing victim." I just watched it from my burner account, rolled my eyes, and went back to my coffee. Then came the check. I came home from work, I actually had to work while they were busy throwing tantrums, and found an envelope in the mailbox. No note, just a handwritten name and a stamp. Inside was a cashier's check. The exact amount I'd spent on detailing plus an extra $200. I stared at it for a while, wondering if it was some kind of peace offering or just a legal tactic to make the complaint go away. Either way, I deposited it. Not because I needed the money, I was doing fine, but because I wanted the message to land. Actions have consequences. And just because those consequences didn't come with yelling or door slamming didn't mean they didn't exist. 2 days later, I got an email from a lawyer. Not mine, theirs. It was thinly veiled as a request for informal resolution. Legal speak for, "Please don't press charges, this is embarrassing." I didn't respond right away. I wanted to think, not just about the situation, but about what I wanted from it. Revenge wasn't it. I wasn't interested in humiliating them further. They were already doing a great job of that on their own. What I wanted was something simpler, a clear message, a line that wasn't just drawn but reinforced. So I replied, polite, short, professional. I attached the security footage again, sent over the receipt from the detail shop itemized, added a note that said, "This is the amount you owe me for damages. Once paid, I will not pursue further legal action. Do not contact me again unless it is through legal representation." I clicked send and felt fine. No thrill, no fear, just clean. And then came the shift. The silence didn't last. It never does with people like them. The second you don't feed the chaos, they start choking on their own noise. That's when the texts changed tone. No more guilt-tripping or defensiveness. Now it was all about image. Vanessa. Sorry, Caleb's girlfriend, who I never even mentioned before because she barely exists outside of her phone, posted a photo of the family at dinner with the caption, "Some people cut ties over nothing. But family forgives." I knew exactly what that was. A performative jab wrapped in fake grace. I didn't respond. Then one of my aunts, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year, suddenly texted me, "I don't know what's going on, but I hope you find peace. We love you." Sweet, right? Except I knew the game. My mom was on the phone behind the scenes, spinning a version of events where I lost my mind and lashed out over a misunderstanding. That's how they work. Rewrite the story, control the narrative, paint themselves as the calm ones. I used to chase that. Used to try to correct the record. Not anymore. I left it all on read. Not because I was bitter, but because I was free. And they couldn't stand it. The messages started coming faster. "We need to talk. This is going too far. Your father hasn't been sleeping. Caleb is still hurt from what you said." My favorite was a voicemail from Mom where she cried and said, "I don't know what happened to you." That one almost made me laugh. Because the truth was, nothing happened to me. Something happened for me. I got clarity. The kind you don't unsee once it lands. And clarity is powerful. It doesn't need revenge. It doesn't need vindication. It just moves on. I stopped looking at the messages, muted every thread, blocked the worst of them. And my life. It got boring, wonderfully boring. I was cooking again, walking more, reading, the kind of peaceful life you can't buy with drama or debt. But I knew it wouldn't stay that way. I knew eventually something would break through the stillness. and I was right. One morning, I was making pancakes, scrolling through emails when I heard a knock. Not urgent, not aggressive, but persistent. I looked through the peephole and almost choked on my coffee. My mom, my dad, Caleb, again. And this time, they had luggage, like actual suitcases, rolling wheels, backpacks, a duffel. They weren't just here to argue, they were here to stay. I opened the door slowly, just enough to be heard. No warm greeting, no fake smile. Just me standing there with a spatula in one hand and a look that said, "You have got to be kidding me." My mom gave me that hopeful, pleading smile. "Eli, honey, we're in a tough spot right now." I said nothing. She continued. "The lease ended. We missed a couple payments. Dad's work cut his hours. Caleb," she trailed off like even she knew there was no way to frame Caleb's situation as anything other than a joke. "We just need a place to crash. 2 weeks. Max." I looked at the bags, looked at them, then back at the bags. Then I said, "You think after everything you can just show up and move in?" Dad tried to speak. "It's not permanent. We just need time to figure things out." Caleb added, "We can sleep on the floor if it's that serious." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so disconnected from reality that I couldn't even be angry. I was stunned. They actually believed they could walk back into my space like the past didn't happen, like the cold porch and the casserole and the eggs and the silence meant nothing. Like I was still the same person they'd been using for years. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give a speech. I just said no. My mom blinked. "What? No," I repeated. "You're not staying here." She stuttered, "But we're family." I looked her dead in the eyes. "And family doesn't slam doors and throw eggs." Dad frowned. "We were upset, and I'm allowed to be done," I said. "You decided I wasn't part of the family when it was convenient. Now you're here and I'm supposed to forget all of that." No one answered. Caleb muttered something under his breath, probably an insult. I didn't care enough to ask. I stepped back into the apartment, held the door with one hand, and said the final line they didn't expect. "You told me there weren't enough chairs at your table, so now I don't have a floor for you." Then I closed the door. No slam, no drama. Just a quiet, decisive click. Through the peephole, I watched them stand there for a while trying to figure out what just happened. They didn't knock again. They just dragged their bags away, heads down. And me, I went back to my pancakes, ate them in silence. Peaceful, boring, delicious silence. The kind that tastes like freedom. I didn't think that would be the last of it. People like them don't take silence well. It's not just the rejection they hate, it's the absence of control. And after a few days of not hearing from them, I knew they were regrouping. They were too used to being the center of gravity, too confident I'd eventually orbit back around. But they were wrong. Because this time I didn't bend. I didn't explain. I didn't argue or justify or write long texts full of clarity they'd just twist into excuses. I just moved forward. And like clockwork, they started spinning. It began with the group chat, the one my extended family uses for birthdays and bad memes. I hadn't touched it since before Thanksgiving. Now suddenly, there was Vanessa Caleb's on-again, off-again girlfriend posting photos of old family gatherings with captions like, "The good old days before bitterness ruined everything." No names, of course, just vibes. Right after that came a flood of vague, guilt-laced replies from aunts and cousins. "Hope we can all reconnect soon. Family is messy, but worth fighting for. We shouldn't let silence win." That last one almost made me laugh, as if silence was the enemy, when really silence had been the only honest thing in months. I didn't reply, didn't even open the thread again after that. But the damage control campaign was picking up speed. A few cousins reached out privately, some curious, some concerned, a couple just nosy. I gave them the short version. I was excluded, disrespected, then expected to keep paying for everyone else's life while mine was treated like an afterthought. Most didn't know what to say after that. One cousin told me flat out, "Damn, I didn't know it was that bad." Another said, "They made it sound like you just ghosted." I almost laughed again. Of course they did. That's the trick. If you rewrite the ending, people stop asking how the story really started. But I wasn't going to rewrite mine. I'd lived it. Every quiet dismissal, every guilt-soaked favor, every holiday where I was the one setting tables and paying bills and still somehow not enough. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. And I definitely didn't need to convince anyone else of what I already knew. So I stayed quiet. And the quieter I got, the louder they became. My mom called twice in one afternoon, left voicemails that started sweet and ended sharp. One opened with, "Hi honey, just checking in," and closed with, "I don't know how you became so cold." I didn't call back. Then Caleb texted, "You're really gonna freeze us out over one dinner?" I stared at the message for a while. Not because I was tempted to respond. I just needed to sit with how shallow that sentence was. One dinner. That's how they saw it. Not years, not a pattern, not a lifetime of being tolerated instead of loved. Just one dinner. I didn't reply. He followed up with a second message. "You're not better than us, man." That one made me pause, because it said everything without meaning to. That was the root of it. Somewhere deep down, they'd decided I thought I was above them. Probably because I got out, stayed out, built something on my own. They couldn't say it outright, so they said it sideways. Called me cold, distant, disrespectful. Said I thought I was better, when all I ever wanted was equal. That's the part they never understood. I never asked to be praised, just to be seen. But eventually you get tired of knocking on a door that only opens when they need something. So I stopped. And that's what they called betrayal. My refusal to keep pretending. After a week of quiet, I started getting friend requests on Instagram from random burners. No posts, no profile pics, just vague usernames and fake accounts. Classic reconnaissance move. I blocked them all. Then came the emotional carpet bomb, an email from my dad. Long, rambling, half guilt, half manipulation. It opened with, "I don't know where we went wrong," and ended with, "At some point, you'll realize you need your family." There was a paragraph in the middle about how much stress this was putting on him. Said he'd lost 10 pounds and hadn't been sleeping. Blamed my actions for his insomnia. Didn't mention the egging once. Not even a passing reference. Just an entire essay about how they were the ones hurting. That's the part that always stings even when you expect it. How people who wrong you can still turn themselves into the victim. It's like they flip a switch and suddenly the person they ignored, insulted, or used is now cruel for walking away. Like it's your absence that broke everything, not their behavior. I didn't reply to the email. I forwarded it to myself for the record and then archived it. Then I took a walk, not out of anger, but just to breathe. It was crisp out, quiet. And for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I was carrying anything I couldn't set down. That night, I slept through until morning. No tossing, no checking my phone, just sleep, deep and clean. That's how I knew I was healing. Because healing isn't loud, it's not dramatic or cinematic. It's not some grand epiphany at sunset. It's a quiet morning where you realize you haven't thought about them in hours. It's realizing your heart rate doesn't spike when their name pops up. It's silence that finally feels like peace instead of punishment. But just when I thought the storm had passed, it came back in a new form. Not rage, not pleading, not even guilt. This time it came wrapped in a threat, a soft one, but a threat all the same. I got a text from an unknown number late at night. Just 7 words, "You'll regret this when we're gone." I stared at the screen, trying to imagine which one of them sent it. Didn't really matter. The message was clear. Their pride had curdled into resentment. The roles had reversed. I wasn't the outcast anymore. I was the danger. The unpredictable one. The threat to their comfort. That shift wasn't just about me refusing to help. It was about them losing control. Because I used to be the one they could count on to fold, say yes, help out, stay quiet. They never prepared for a version of me who'd say no and mean it. And now that version terrified them. They didn't recognize me anymore. But the truth was, I didn't either, and that was a good thing. Because this version of me wasn't a doormat, wasn't a paycheck, wasn't a ghost at his own family's table. This version had boundaries, had peace, had clarity. I didn't reply to the text. I just deleted it. Then I put my phone down, looked around my apartment, and smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time, I wasn't trying to earn love that only came with strings attached. I had built something better, not flashy, not loud, just solid, quiet, real. And I wasn't going to give that up. Not for guilt, not for threats, not for the illusion of family that only exists when it's convenient. They had their chance. They made their choices. And now I was making mine. After that last message, the vague threat wrapped in fake sadness, I realized something. I wasn't scared, not even a little. That part of me that used to flinch at the idea of being cut off, of disappointing them, of not being the good son, that part was gone. Or maybe it had just gone quiet long enough for me to hear myself think. Either way, I didn't feel panic. I felt still. Like I'd finally stepped out of a house that had been burning for years, but I only just noticed the smoke on my skin. So I stayed outside, stayed gone. And every day that passed without me reaching out was another day they started to understand I wasn't bluffing. I didn't owe them anymore. Not money, not time, not forgiveness. They burned that bridge and now wanted me to pretend the ashes were still a foundation. I wasn't doing it. Not anymore. Still, the family campaign didn't stop. It changed shape, sure, but it kept moving like a bad politician rebranding after a scandal. My Aunt Liz, who usually only texts when she needs tech support or wants to brag about her garden, suddenly decided to become the messenger of unity. She called me one morning all syrup and sympathy, telling me sometimes pride gets in the way of healing. I let her finish. Let her use words like family bond and it's just money and you know your parents love you. And when she was done, I said calmly, "They threw eggs at my car, Liz. That's not love. That's middle school behavior with adult consequences." She went quiet. I didn't wait for her to respond. I just said take care and hung up. That was the last time she called. They weren't used to that version of me. Direct, steady, done. Before I would have explained. Would have apologized for making things uncomfortable. Would have softened the truth to make it easier to swallow. But now I didn't need to do that. I wasn't angry. I just had nothing left to give them. And the thing is, once you stop performing for people, their masks start to slip too. I started hearing things. Not directly, indirect. Through cousins, through old friends who still followed Caleb's social media. Apparently my mom was telling people I'd turned on the family after getting a raise. Said the money went to my head, said I thought I was too good for them. The irony almost knocked me over. Because if money changed anything, it was them, not me. I'd always helped, quietly, consistently, without asking for anything in return. But now that help was gone, suddenly I was arrogant. Suddenly I was cold. Suddenly I was the enemy. It's funny how fast generosity turns into entitlement. One of my old coworkers used to say, "People get mad when you stop doing what they never appreciated in the first place." And man, that line never felt more true. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. They missed the convenience of me. And now that I was no longer accessible, no longer available to be guilt-tripped or leaned on, I was a problem. I was selfish, toxic, ungrateful. It used to bother me. That idea being misunderstood, having my story twisted into something that made me the villain. But at some point, I realized their version of the story wasn't mine to correct. Let them believe what they needed to sleep at night. I was sleeping fine. And more than that, I was healing. Really healing. Not the fake kind where you post quotes about boundaries while secretly hoping they text back. No, this was deeper. quiet moments, clean mornings, cooking for one and not feeling lonely, learning how to just be. I wasn't carrying resentment. I wasn't keeping score. I just wasn't going back. But I guess peace can be threatening to people who thrive in chaos. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Real envelope. Handwritten. My mom's handwriting. It was short, 3 paragraphs. First one apologized if I felt hurt by how things were handled. That phrasing alone told me everything. If I felt hurt. Like it was a subjective illusion, not something real. Second paragraph listed all the ways they'd supported me growing up. Clothes, food, a roof over my head. The classics, as if basic parenting was a debt I'd never finish paying. The final paragraph asked me to consider showing some compassion during hard times. No acknowledgement of what they did. No mention of the eggs. No apology for the years of using me like a crutch. Just a soft reminder that despite everything, I was still their son, and that meant something. I folded the letter neatly, slid it back into the envelope, tossed it in a drawer. Not out of spite, just because I didn't need to respond. The message had already been received. A few days later, my neighbor, older guy kind, owns a landscaping company, stopped me in the hallway. Said, "You okay?" I nodded. He said, "That your family that was yelling outside your door a while back?" I said, "Yeah." He just nodded and said, "Didn't seem like they came to talk. More like they came to take." Then he patted my shoulder and walked away. That stuck with me. Came to take. That's exactly what it was. Every visit, every text, every call, it was all about taking. Time, energy, money, forgiveness, attention. And once you realize someone only shows up when they're empty and leaves once they've drained you, it gets easier to close the door. You don't even feel bad. You just feel clear. Another month passed. Life stayed simple. I went to work, took walks, read books, caught up with people who didn't make everything about themselves. The kind of friends who actually ask how you're doing and mean it. The kind who don't keep score. I was living lighter. Then one night I got a call from an unknown number. I usually don't answer those, but something told me to pick up. It was my cousin Rachel. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. She said, "Hey, I heard about everything. Just wanted you to know I believe you." I asked, "Believe me about what she said, that you didn't do anything wrong, that walking away doesn't make you the villain." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until she said it. We talked for a while, caught up. She told me about her own stuff, how she went low contact with her mom, how hard it was at first, but how free she feels now. That's the thing no one tells you. Cutting ties isn't about hate, it's about self-respect. It's about choosing peace over performance. It's about accepting that some people only love you in ways that hurt. And once you learn that you don't keep sticking around hoping it changes, you leave quietly, finally, and you don't apologize for it. When the call ended, I sat on my balcony and just watched the sky for a while. No music, no distractions. Just the wind and the hum of the city and the strange, steady peace of being alone without being lonely. I didn't know what would happen next. If they'd ever try again? If they'd keep spinning the story their way? But I knew what wouldn't happen. I wouldn't chase. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't open my door to people who only remembered my name when the rent was due. The story wasn't over. But my part in their version of it. That chapter was closed. And honestly, it felt like the beginning of something better. It's strange how quickly life finds its rhythm again once you stop dragging the weight of other people's expectations behind you. No more guilt loops, no more mental rehearsals of arguments I'll never have, no more measuring my worth in how much I give and how little I ask for in return. It's just me now. Me and the life I'm building on my terms at my pace without apology. And it's quiet in the best way. I still think about them sometimes. Not with anger, not even sadness anymore, just clarity. Like remembering a dream that used to feel real until the morning light made it obvious how much of it was built on illusion. I don't hate them. That's the truth. I don't wish them harm. I just don't want them near me. Not in my space, not in my head, and not in the life I've finally started to live for myself. They chose distance the day they looked me in the eyes and told me there wasn't a seat for me at their table. They drew that line and I respected it. I honored it even more than they did. They didn't expect that. People like them count on second chances they never earned. They think family means immunity, that they can cut you with one hand and hold the other out for help and you'll just pretend not to notice. But I noticed, and I remembered. And now I respond with silence and peace. The two things they never gave me. A few weeks ago, I ran into someone who used to know my family, an old neighbor from the street I grew up on. He asked how my parents were doing if I still visited them often. I smiled and said, "We don't talk much these days." He raised his eyebrows, surprised, but didn't press. Just nodded slowly like he knew there was more under the surface but didn't want to dig. That interaction stayed with me, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. It used to. There was a time when even thinking about how disconnected I was from my own family felt like a bruise that never quite healed. But now it just feels like a chapter that ended. Some books don't get sequels, some bridges don't get rebuilt, and some dinners don't need your seat filled, especially when you were never really invited to sit, just expected to serve. I've come to understand something most people don't say out loud. Blood isn't a contract. It's a coincidence. And love isn't something you owe just because someone shares your last name. It's something you choose. And if that choice is never mutual, it's okay to stop making it. You can leave the table. You can build your own. That's what I've done. Slowly, carefully. A real table this time. Not one where I'm standing with a dish in my hands waiting to be noticed. One where I sit down and there's space for peace, for self-respect, for people who don't need anything from me except my presence, people who ask how I'm doing and don't turn it into a segue about themselves, friends who show up without needing an invoice, coworkers who respect my boundaries, neighbors who wave and mean it. It's not flashy, it's not big, but it's mine. And that's more than I ever had in that house growing up. I've stopped measuring my value in how useful I am to people who never saw me. That's the biggest change. I used to think love looked like sacrifice. Now I know it looks like choice, like freedom, like space to breathe without earning it first. Vanessa posted on Instagram last week. Some blurry quote graphic about forgiveness and choosing love even when it's hard. Classic performative piece. The kind of thing people post when they want to look wise while ignoring every chance to actually grow. I didn't like it, didn't comment, didn't screenshot it for a group chat. I just scrolled past. Because I'm done collecting evidence against people who already showed me who they are. I don't need to keep the scorecard. I already won. Not because I hurt them, not because I got revenge, but because I stopped playing. That was the victory. Walking away without slamming the door. Choosing stillness over chaos. Living in peace, even if it meant living alone. Except I'm not really alone anymore. Not in the way that matters. I found people. Not replacements, just real ones. Ones I picked, ones who picked me. We had a Friendsgiving this year. Small group, nothing big. We cooked together, set the table, laughed about nothing for hours. Nobody asked me to pay extra. Nobody forgot I was coming. Nobody rolled their eyes when I spoke. There were enough seats for everyone. And it was simple and warm and healing. I brought sweet potato casserole. Not because it was anyone's favorite, just because I like it. Because this time it wasn't about proving anything. It was just food, just comfort, just me being myself fully in a room full of people who didn't expect me to shrink to be worthy of their kindness. That's the difference. That's the payoff. Not revenge, not some dramatic confrontation. Just the quiet satisfaction of building a life that doesn't depend on anyone else's permission to feel good. People still ask sometimes if I think I'll ever make up with them. My parents, Vanessa, the whole crew. I tell them the truth. I don't know, but I'm not waiting for it. I'm not holding space in my heart for apologies that may never come. I'm not rehearsing my forgiveness just in case they wake up one day and finally get it. I'm not freezing a chair at the table hoping they earn it back. I'm just living, fully, finally. And that's the point, isn't it? Sometimes you don't get closure. Sometimes they never say sorry. Sometimes the people who hurt you don't even realize they did. And sometimes the best thing you can do is stop needing them to. I did that. And now I wake up without checking my phone for their texts. I walk into my kitchen and cook without counting how many mouths I'm feeding or how much it's costing me this month. I sit on my couch and read without looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next request will come. I live in a place where peace isn't earned, it's natural. And every day I grow a little further away from the version of myself who thought love meant proving your worth over and over again. That version deserved better. And now he's getting it. Not from them, but from me. That's the most powerful revenge of all. Not slamming the door, not screaming at the top of your lungs, just choosing peace and never looking back. Story 2. You weren't invited, my mother hissed as she answered the door when I arrived home for the holidays. This is exclusively for actual family, not letdowns like you. Without saying anything, I turned around. My sister texted a few minutes later. Be less theatrical. You are aware that you are the issue here. I turned off all of the cards, canceled utilities, frozen the joint account, and grinned. I then learned that they attempted to embezzle my fortune. I therefore exacted my retribution. My voicemail was overflowing by morning, and the group chat was ablaze. Hi everyone. Prior to starting today's video, I need your assistance. One of the greatest ways you can help us out is to subscribe, since we've observed the channel is losing some of its popularity. It's simple, free, and helps us continue to provide you with amazing content. Your assistance is much appreciated. Together, let's continue to build this channel. Many thanks. Let's begin the video now. Disposable account. Since a few individuals in my life are aware of my primary. I'm still getting over this, which happened during the holidays. I need to get this off my chest since what my family did was really insane, but it will take a lot of words. Okay, let's start with some backstory, because this catastrophe didn't happen all at once. About 3 hours from my birthplace, I, a 29-year-old guy, handle warehouse operations for a logistics firm. It's not flashy, but it pays well, roughly $52,000 a year plus overtime, putting me firmly in the middle class. I don't have much money, a dependable car, my own apartment, or anything fancy, but I'm doing okay for myself. But my family, the exact opposite is true. There is my 52-year-old mother, Linda, who hasn't had a legitimate job since my father passed away 4 years ago. Although she receives some Social Security, she mostly uses Facebook to whine about everything. When she feels like it, my 26-year-old sister Jessica works part-time at a nail salon, but she primarily relies on her boyfriend or emergency funds from relatives. Tyler, my 24-year-old brother, alternates between construction jobs and unemployment. He always finds a reason to miss work. This is when it becomes foolish. Mom contacted me in tears about her financial difficulties approximately 2.5 years ago. Dad was out of life insurance. The home needed repairs. She feared that all would be lost. I stepped up and opened a joint checking account to assist with bills because I was the eldest and the only one with a reliable source of income. When things grew tight, it was just groceries and utilities, nothing fancy. My first error was that. You see, that's what I believed it meant to assist with costs. During difficult times, maybe $200 to $300 a month at most. I was unaware that I had just turned into their personal bank account. Jessica managed to obtain a debit card for the account within 6 months. Tyler persuaded my mother to add him on my credit card as an authorized user for usage in an emergency only. What about the expenses? Jesus Christ, the spending began right away. But I was working double shifts and insane hours in an attempt to save money for a down payment on a house, so I didn't realize it at first. When I saw money leaving my account, I would just believe it was the amount we had agreed upon. I believed Mom, since she claimed to be in charge of the home finances. The second major error. Last Christmas should have served as the true wake-up call. I brought gifts for everyone in my car, spent about $400 in total, which at the time was a lot of money for me. As soon as I arrived, I sensed the strange vibe. I don't know, they were all behaving guilty like if they had been discussing me before I got there. Dinner was rather weird. Jessica continued bringing up the fact that I behave superior to everyone since I work for a living. Tyler joked that since I live alone, I must be making a lot of money. When I attempted to ask about their lives or bring up family memories, Mom simply sat there and let it happen. They would respond with a single word and shift the topic. However, someone needed something the second. Jessica's auto loan. The phone bill for Tyler. I feel like family all of a sudden. I departed early that evening. I informed them that indeed I had to work the following day. Jessica rolled her eyes and said something along the lines of course you do. That ought to have been my cue to stop them there. Family, though, because they're blood, you keep trying. I made the decision to try again this year. Perhaps things would be different. Perhaps they had matured a bit. I was off from work for 3 days. $300 was spent on a flight during the busiest time of year. About 3 weeks before my trip, I submitted them my itinerary. Silence on the radio. However, that is typical for them. They can't communicate well, unless they have a desire. So, I bring a $35 pie from this upscale bakery by the airport to the house. I'm thinking I might be able to make things better. For once, enjoy a wonderful Christmas with your family. I'm holding this pie while standing on the porch in my nice jacket. The door opens before I can even knock, and I'm really thrilled to see everyone. Mom is standing there wearing a sweater that I got her for her birthday 2 years ago. I recall it because she emphasized how considerate I was, and it cost me $70 at Kohl's. She gives me the look of someone attempting to sell her a vacuum cleaner door to door. You are not invited. I promise this is for family only. Time paused. Inside, I hear laughter and voices. The food is smelling to me. Costly cuisine. The sort of spread that is very expensive. She's also telling me that I'm not allowed to attend the Christmas dinner with my own family. I don't argue. I'm not a questioner. Like a zombie, I simply turn around and head back to my rental car. I've been thinking that there must be a misunderstanding the entire time. She might be experiencing a senior moment. Perhaps she didn't realize I was coming. My phone then buzzes. Jessica texted, "Don't be upset about it. You are aware of your own nature." Reality struck me like a freight train at that point. This was no error. They had purposefully left me out of their family Christmas plans. After 2.5 years of me financially supporting them, I sat in that rental car for 10 minutes just staring at the house. I could see people moving around in side shadows in the windows, my family having Christmas dinner without me. And that's when I stopped being sad and started getting pissed. I drove to a Wendy's about 20 minutes away and parked in their lot, ordered a combo meal I didn't want just to have somewhere to sit and think. That's when I started really looking at my bank account for the first time in months. See, I'd been working so much overtime lately that I hadn't been paying close attention to my finances. I knew money was going out to help the family, but I figured it was just the usual stuff, utilities, groceries, maybe some emergency car repairs. Wrong. So crazy incorrect. I started going through my checking account transactions and instantly recognized charges. I didn't identify many Amazon orders every week. DoorDash virtually every day, Netflix. Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max streaming services. I don't even utilize a gym membership for Planet Fitness in my local town. I live 3 hours away and train at home, but it gets worse. I saw charges at Victoria's Secret Bath and Body Works, some boutique apparel store called Vintage Vibes Gaming, purchases on Xbox Live. Uber trips all over town. This wasn't emergency money. This was a lifestyle I was sponsoring without even knowing it. I contacted my bank right there in the Wendy's parking lot, requested them to email me statements for the joint account going back 2 years. The customer support person was incredibly helpful, stated they'd send everything within an hour while I waited. I began recording a voice memo on my phone, simply explaining what I was learning and attempting to make sense of it all. Sometimes you have to say things out to make them seem genuine. All right, so on Tuesday, there was an $89 charge at a restaurant named Bella Vista. I was working 2 shifts on Tuesday. I was out of town. Who in heck is spending my money on dinners that cost $89? Before I finished my fries, I received an email with the bank statements. I'm talking about 47 pages of transactions, people. Holy shit. Financial history spanning 2 years that I obviously didn't know about. In my mind, I began classifying all of the invoices I had pledged to assist with in an emergency. They had inquired about random items they had purchased without asking. It was a crazy ratio. For each $1, I deliberately consented to assist. I had never heard of the other 5. This is when it really got to me, though. On December 15th, I discovered a $127 charge at a liquor shop. Since Dad's death, my mom has abstained from drinking. Therefore, either they were purchasing pricey alcohol for their Christmas party, or she acquired a covert drinking problem, the Christmas gathering to which I was not invited. As I dug more, I discovered additional party-related costs. Holiday catering products cost $78 at a posh supermarket shop and $43 at Party City. $156 for what seemed to be appetizer plates at a restaurant named Gourmet. They informed me I wasn't welcome after using my money to create a Christmas party for themselves. I recorded another voice memo. I believe I have been paying for my own alienation from the family. That's very amazing, and it's really freaking out. I stayed in my hotel room for the following 2 days. Yes, I remained in town solely to deal with this problem. Spreadsheets were created by going through each statement with a fine-tooth comb, since obviously I'm that man now. But to be honest, I couldn't believe how horrible it was until I saw everything all put out. $11,847 in total over 28 months. Those are not the bills that were agreed upon. That just includes the unapproved items. They spent money on stuff they never informed me about without asking. Jessica alone had spent $4 on Uber journeys to an unknown location restaurant, meals, clothing, and cosmetics. When she bothers to show up for work, she makes maybe $800 a month at her manicure salon job. However, she was living as if she had $50,000. Even terrible was Tyler. The charges total $4,600. Fast food and gaming, mostly. This guy said he couldn't afford his vehicle payment, yet he was still spending $60 on games. The same week he begged me for food money, he purchased a $300 gaming headset. Mom, however, was the true victor. $2,900 in sporadic transactions, including many charges at unfamiliar eateries, and $400 at a home decor store. Apparently, a lot of pricey meals and ornamental throw pillows are part of the mourning widow experience. I was unable to identify the mysterious charges that accounted for the remaining $147. But this is what truly annoyed me. I compared the dates to the texts we exchanged. They would always seek me for assistance with a certain task. They would buy random things with double that amount the same week. Similar to Jessica's October SMS message to me. Would you be able to assist me with my rent? I'm panicking because I'm $250 short. Since I'm not a monster, I sent the money right away. However, she spent $180 at Sephora and $95 at a hip downtown restaurant for supper that same day. In September, Tyler contacted me to tell me that his car was making strange noises and that he needed $300 to fix it. It turns out the same week he bought a new TV for $350. They were lying to gain my money, not simply stealing it. Then making me feel bad for not contributing more while squandering money on luxuries. I inquired about obtaining fraud protection for each and every account when I phoned my bank once again. I was asked by the person whether I wanted to report the unlawful use to the police. Not yet, I said, although I was curious about my possibilities. I then gave a lawyer a call. I came across this man online who focused on family law and financial fraud. Called him and told him the entire story. Something he said has stayed with me for a while. Because they are skilled at manipulating your affection for them, family members give you more pain than strangers. Oh no, that struck a new chord. He added that I could be able to file criminal charges for financial fraud even against family members provided I could demonstrate that the charges were unapproved, which I could do because I had all of our text exchanges. Although I wasn't yet prepared to go that far, knowing that I had choices was helpful. The day after Christmas, I took a plane home and used the weekend to figure out what I should do next. Not precisely retaliation, but repercussions. Isn't there a difference? I have experience with meticulous planning because I work in logistics. You recognize the issue. Compile information, create a solution, follow the strategy, and keep an eye on the outcomes. Fundamental issue with process management. My family had been treating me like an outsider and stealing from me for more than 2 years. Information. Unauthorized charges totaling $11,847 for $7 known falsehoods. Manipulation pattern. Answer. Terminate all financial access right away and forever. I began by phoning each business where autopay was enabled on my accounts. Everything was canceled, including insurance, credit card payments, and utility providers. Everything takes affect right away. After that, I gave my bank a call and asked them to freeze the joint account while they looked into fraud. I informed them that I required all activity since several persons had been making unlawful charges, paused while I fixed the problem. I then got in touch with each of the 3 credit card providers and asked them to deactivate any cards that had extra authorized users on them. The cards of Tyler and Jessica. Dead. Mom's emergency contingency plan. Lost. In order to reverse over 3 years of financial abuse, the entire procedure took almost 4 hours divided between Monday and Tuesday. I kept what I was doing from them. They assumed they will learn soon enough. They certainly did. Around 2:00 p.m. on Wednesday, my phone began to ring. Jessica initially. Hello, Target refused my card. There is a problem with the system. I let the voicemail go. An hour later, Tyler phoned. The bank informed me that there was an issue with the account dude. Could you give them a call voicemail? Then Mom called. Someone may have hijacked our bank account, honey. Not a single card is functioning. Voicemail too. I had 15 missed calls by 6 o'clock and the family group chat was going crazy. Is there anyone else whose cards aren't working? Jessica, Tyler, this is very strange. There's clearly a problem. My material isn't getting through. Mom! My card was refused when I attempted to pay for groceries. This is really humiliating. Derek, my cousin, is out of state. Have any of you given the bank a call? We've been attempting Jessica, but they just state that the account has been locked for security. While eating Chinese takeaway that I had paid for with my own money from a private account that no one else had access to, I watched it all happen from the comfort of my couch. I wasn't even upset anymore, and it was like watching dominoes fall slowly. I felt content. At last, I'm content. Panic hit Thursday morning. Panic, real panic. When I woke up, my voicemail box was filled and there were 31 missed calls. Overnight, there were 127 unread messages in the family group chat. It seems that about 8 a.m., the electricity was turned off at Mom's house. They had already been late enough times before the automatic payment that I had been covering for 3 years failed to process. They were just disconnected by the utility provider. It's unbelievable that this is taking place just before New Year's, Jessica. Tyler, it's frigid at Mom's place. Everything is off since the heat is electric. Mom, I have no idea what's going on. Why would they cut the electricity? Derek, my cousin, hold on. The energy bill has been paid by whom? Long silence in the conversation. That's Jessica. That isn't significant at the moment. We must find a solution to this. Derek, however, was not letting it go. Whose name is the account under really another lengthy silence. Look, Tyler, let's just concentrate on restoring Derek's power. Who pays your bills is a mystery to you all. I made the decision to have some fun at that point. For the first time since Christmas, I made a post in the conversation. My account's automated payment was stopped, thus, the electricity is off. The same is true of gas, water, and the internet. All of them will be turned off in the coming days. After 5 minutes or so of complete silence, the conversation erupted. Jessica, are you referring to your account? Why are you covering your mother's expenses? Tyler, what's going on, dude? Could you please solve this? Call me Mom, please, darling. This is probably simply a miscommunication. Derek, wait, all of their utilities have been paid for by you. How long? Me, 28 months. The average monthly cost is $487, along with food, credit cards, and whatever else they felt like purchasing. Derek, you don't need to make it sound like we're leeches or anything, Jessica. Me, what do you call it, Tyler? We are related. Family members support one another. The members of my family are also invited to Christmas dinner. Dead quiet once more. Hold on, Derek. What took place around Christmas? No one responded. So I did. Me, I spent Christmas flying down. Mom informed me that since it was for family, I was not invited. Discovered later. The meal I was not permitted to attend is paid for with my credit card. Are you serious? Derek, are you serious? Derek's mother, my Aunt Karen, interrupted the conversation. Is that right, Linda? There was a miscommunication, Mom. Derek and I faced space constraints. Restricted area. Karen, it's your son. You bought a supper he wasn't invited to with his money. Jessica, that is not all there is to it. Karen, how complex is it? You either asked him or you didn't. Look, Tyler, this is going completely out of control. Derek, however, it seems like you guys have been treating him like garbage and exploiting him as a personal ATM. I uploaded the spreadsheet at that point. For days, I had been sorting through this spreadsheet, classifying each transaction by date, person, and category. In addition to being cruel, it was lovely. 28 months of data with clarity. 11,847 unlawful charges in total, broken down by individual with particular instances provided. Jessica's Victoria's Secret highlight reel cost $78. She requested rent assistance that same day. Dinner at Bella Vista cost $156. 4 people in the party. Was she feeding anybody else? Apparently, it was $80 at Bath & Body Works. Toiletries for emergencies. In a week, there were 67 Uber journeys. The girl isn't even employed. The gaming headset Tyler's Greatest Hits costs $298. A week after requesting grocery funds. 2 or 3 times a week, $45 DoorDash orders are placed. Dick's Sporting Goods, $189. For a person who said they were broke, $134 in a single day at GameStop. Several deals. Mom's unique moments. At Home Goods, $387. The home must have required some decoration. $156 for 6 people at Olive Garden. Another party I didn't know about. An $89 wine buy for a non-drinking individual. At Sally Beauty, $67. It seems that mourning necessitates costly hair care products. I put everything in a brief message in the group conversation. This is the real destination of your family's assistance funds. Each charge has documentation and may be verified. I then banned all of their numbers and exited the group chat. However, I didn't block Karen or Derek. I was curious to know what came next. The following 3 weeks were completely crazy. Derek texted me to keep me informed on the whole collapse in my hometown. Power is still off on day 1. Jessica's flat was the only place Mom could remain. The additional renter didn't sit well with Jessica's landlord. At Mom's place, the water was turned off on the 3rd day. Tyler was also homeless since he had been staying there to save money. Day 5. The automobile owned by Mom was repossessed. She was unable to pay them on her own, and it became out that I had also been making those payments. Jessica was eliminated on the 8th day. It was against her lease to have Mom remain there. They expelled them both when she was unable to pay the late penalties due to the loss of her backup financing. Day 12. Tyler lost his construction job because he missed too many days. Instead of working, he had been attempting to resolve the bank matter. Dude, your mom is sleeping on Tyler's friend's couch. Derek would give me his updates. A man Jessica hardly knows is the one she is staying with. This is crazy. Here's the problem, though. It didn't make me happy. I wasn't reveling in their suffering. All I was neutral, like looking across the street at a house burning. I'm sorry it occurred, but it's not my issue. Derek then sent me something that chilled me to the bone on day 18. Sometimes your own children leave you when you need them most, as Mom said on Facebook. I'm praying for courage in these trying times. Please tell me if you know of any inexpensive housing options or if you can assist with expenses. The remarks were harsh. What happened? Family friends ask, extending assistance. I'm looking for specifics. Mom was also doing a great job of portraying the victim, going through a difficult time, drama in the family, attempting to maintain a cheerful attitude. Not a word about the 11-847, the falsehoods are not mentioned. Christmas is not mentioned. I became aware that they were not learning anything at that point. They refused to accept accountability. All they were looking for was someone new to control. I thus tagged them all in my own Facebook status update. For anybody curious about my family's difficult time, I found that they had been fraudulently using my bank accounts and credit cards for more than 2 years, spending about $12,000 on unnecessary things while pretending to be in need of assistance with basic expenses. They informed me I wasn't allowed to the Christmas meal I had mistakenly paid for when I challenged them about it. I have ceased all financial assistance and communication. They are not homeless because of uncontrollable circumstances. They have to deal with the repercussions of their decisions. I've included the spreadsheet. The consequences were dramatic and quick. Friends and family began to leave comments. God damn, $12,000. And is this accurate? Linda, furthermore, how could you harm your own son in this way? Mom made an effort to reply. This is a personal family issue that is being exaggerated. However, Uncle Jim said, I've seen the proof, Linda. This hasn't been exaggerated, Karen, Derek's mother, posted. The way my sister would treat her child disgusts me. Mom removed the initial post after 6 hours, but screenshots are permanent. And my comment had already been circulated by a number of family members. I received a call that night from an unfamiliar number. Something forced me to answer when I nearly didn't. Don't hang up, please. Jessica was phoning from a different phone. Jess, what do you want? We must speak. Every one of us. Could you please we can drive up there, or you may come down here. There is nothing to discuss. Yes, there is. This is something we can resolve. We are able to reimburse you. I genuinely laughed. How much money? You're unemployed. We'll find employment. Actual jobs. We'll pay. At the minimum pay. Working full-time. You would have 3 years to repay the theft. Assuming you didn't spend any additional funds, that is. Don't refer to it as theft. What do you call it? Quiet. Then Jessica said something that chilled me to the bone. Look, when you come down, we can talk about the house problem. What is the situation at home? Another lengthy silence. Too much time. Jessica. What is the situation at home? I assumed you were aware. Did you know what regarding Dad's land? He left the land. My heart began to race. Which land? Dad was a landless man. The cabin is on 40 acres up north. The earth seemed to be moving under me. Dad owned 40 acres? Did Mom not inform you? No. She's freaking out. Didn't inform me. I need you to tell me what you're talking about right now, Jessica. Dad received the farm from Grandpa Joe. The family has owned it for around 50 years. Since Dad passed away, Mom has been in charge of all the paperwork. Jessica wondered whether I was still there because I had been silent for so long. You learned about this property when it has always been known to us. Mom said, you know, I believe. I've never heard of any real estate. Not once. Jessica fell silent once more. She had panicked out, and I could almost hear it. Jessica, does Mom intend to sell this house? I am unable to. You should discuss this with your mother. Does she intend to sell it and divide the proceeds between Tyler and you? Come down, please, so that we can all. I ended the call. I had trembling hands. I phoned Derek right away. Derek, are you aware of any properties up north? Dad left 40 acres? Oh, fuck. Did you know, Derek, that she didn't tell you? Yes, dude. I apologize. I assumed you were aware. It has always been in the family. Your father bequeathed it to all three of you when your grandfather passed it on to him. All three of us. Yes, equal portions, a third each. I was ill. How much is the property worth, Derek man? It has a good cabin and road access. This market is close to the lake. At least $180,000, if not more. $60,000. My portion would be $60,000. Has anybody spoken about selling it, Derek? Your mother has been inquiring about real estate with relatives. According to agents, she planned to sell off her father's possessions to pay off debt. I phoned my lawyer soon away after I started inquiring around in November, just before they determined I wasn't family enough for Christmas dinner. Please investigate a property in my father's name and let me know if any sales or transfers are still pending. He returned my call 3 hours later. All three of your children received equal parts of the property from your father. However, because of her financial irresponsibility and family strife, your mother filed documents in December asserting that she had power of attorney over your share. Is she capable of doing that? No, not legally. She could have been able to get it through, though, if you were unaware of the property and didn't challenge it. Fortunately, nothing has been decided upon yet. What must I accomplish? To challenge the power of attorney, file a claim right away. You'll likely receive a restraining order on any property sales. I then understood that this was more than simply the money I had been providing them. This involved depriving me of a $60,000 inheritance and using my own funds to support them until the transaction was completed. They were scam artists, not only robbers. After visiting my lawyer's office, I gave Jessica a call back. Hello, she murmured with a hopeful tone. Jessica, I recently learned that my mother submitted documents asserting power of attorney over my inheritance. Dead quiet. She informed us that you were aware of the property and were unwilling to deal with it. That is untrue. She said you couldn't manage property ownership because you were too careless with money. The irony was really amazing. I want you to carefully consider what you're about to say next, Jessica. Has your mother informed Tyler and you that you will split half of the property's sale proceeds? It would help us all get back on our feet, she remarked. Every one of us. Or only you. 2 more. Quiet. Just only the 2 of us. It was there. Until the scheme was over, they had been using my money to sustain themselves while stealing my inheritance. Look, she added, you're ruining our lives over money even though we recognize we made a mistake. Nothing is being destroyed by me. Simply put, I'm no longer financing it. Furthermore, I will not allow you to take my inheritance. Mom is dozing off on a couch. Tyler lives in his vehicle. And who is to blame for that? If you wanted to, you could solve this tomorrow. If you had told me the truth about everything, you might have avoided this whole situation. Please, more silence. Her voice broke as she said, We are related. For 2 years, family members don't tell lies to one another. During Christmas dinner, family members do not exclude one another. Family members use their money to get by, but they don't try to steal from one another. We are capable of transformation. It's been 28 months since you changed. You're going to take from me instead. Please, please, please. We'll do anything. At that moment, I came to a significant realization. They have no apologies for their actions. They regretted being discovered. They weren't expressing regret for deceiving me, ignoring me, or using me. All they were afraid of was the collapse of their long-term scam. I continued, my voice colder than I had ever heard it. Here's what's going to happen. You will hire an attorney to challenge Mom's assertion of bogus power of attorney. You will come clean about how she misled you and said that I was aware of the property. Additionally, you will ensure that I receive my whole 1/3 portion of that bequest. Jessica, I can't do that to my mother. She intended to use my money to keep you alive until the transaction was completed while stealing $60,000 from me. We were all played by her. She won't receive anything, though, if we contest it. In any case, she had no intention of giving me anything. Now I could hear Jessica sobbing. How about we divide it 4 ways Mom also receives something? Mom has no claim on the land. Dad didn't leave it to his wife, but to his kids. Please, she is our mom. I'm your brother too. Didn't deter you from stealing from me. A long silence. Jessica, are you really going to ruin our family because of this? The instant you decided I wasn't worthy of being invited to Christmas dinner, our family was shattered, while preparing to embezzle my wealth. All I'm doing is making sure there are repercussions. This will be fought. I wish you luck. I have a lawyer, proof of financial fraud that has been documented, as well as the original. Are you going to have a false power of attorney document? I blocked that number 2 and hung up. I wasn't finished, though. Not even close. I headed to the courts the next morning and filed all of the documents my attorney had prepared, contested the attorney's power, demanded a complete audit of the property's management since Dad's passing, and an immediate halt on any real estate transactions. After that, I took a completely nuclear action. When I updated my Facebook status, I learned that the financial theft in my family was only the beginning. Until the fraud was over, they planned to use my money to maintain themselves while stealing my $60,000 inheritance. Even though I was paying all of their expenses, my mother claimed in false power of attorney forms that I was reckless with money. My birthright was about to be stolen by the same folks who said I wasn't family enough for Christmas dinner. There is legal action underway. I tagged them all once more, plus every member of my family that comes to mind. The reaction was swift and vicious. Karen, how did you go so low, Linda? This goes much beyond theft, Uncle Jim. This is the ultimate kind of treachery. Derek, it's unbelievable that you would harm your own son in this way, Aunt Linda. Family friends also began to leave comments. This is repulsive. And how is your nighttime sleep? Uncle Mark, my dad's brother, who I hadn't spoken to in years, made the remark that really got to me. Your dad would feel embarrassed. All 3 of his children received an equal share of the land from him. The most abhorrent thing I've ever heard is that you would attempt to steal from one of them while he was providing for you financially. He did when I called a family meeting. After Dad passed away, Uncle Mark became the family's eldest male. People admired the power he possessed. The next weekend, he planned a family get-together. Only members of the extended family. Tyler, Mom, and Jessica weren't invited. For the first time since Christmas, I returned to my hometown and traveled down for it. Uncle Mark's house was the location of the gathering. Derek was present. Uncle Jim, my cousin Rachel, and Karen. I hadn't seen several of my great-aunts in years. Uncle Mark got up and read aloud from Dad's will. The property portion made perfect sense. I give my 3 children the address of my inherited property. Tyler James and Jessica Marie are my names, and they will split them up any way they see appropriate. Not a single mention about Linda. Uncle Mark didn't mention power of attorney at all. Your father was an expert in his field. Karen then raised her voice. I believe that everyone needs to know the truth about what actually transpired here. For years, Linda has used the generosity of my name, was preparing to embezzle his wealth. It's not a family argument. Criminal fraud is what this is. Uncle Jim gave a nod. While they want to rob him of his whole fortune, the child has been providing for the entire family. I discovered the full scope of their falsehoods at that point. Mom had apparently been complaining to the extended family for months that I was hard to get along with and wouldn't assist with family issues. She had been laying the groundwork for the idea that I was the troublemaker who shouldn't be trusted with money matters. In the meantime, I was essentially covering every aspect of their way of life. According to my great-aunt Helen, the worst thing is that they planned this without inviting him to Christmas. That is cruelty, not just stealing. Uncle Mark gave me a look. How would you like to handle this? My inheritance is what I desire. I want them to reimburse me for their theft. Additionally, I want kids to realize that decisions have repercussions. How about criminal charges? Eric was asked. I considered it. Yes, if they are able to challenge the audit or test my inheritance claim. Allegations of conspiracy, identity theft, and fraud. Uncle Mark gave a nod. All right, they made their decisions. A unanimous agreement was reached at the end of the family gathering. Until they made amends with me, Mom Jessica and Tyler were formally removed from any family support. Nobody would give them a loan, host them, or otherwise assist them. I hadn't felt that validated in a long time. I didn't recognize the lawyer who called me 3 days later. Mom's last name is Linda, and this is Attorney Williams on her behalf. We want to talk about resolving the property issue. What sort of agreement? As initially planned, my client is willing to divide the land in 3 ways. In return for you not being charged with fraud. I chuckled. Terms for abiding by the law are not negotiable for your customer. Additionally, she is ready to start paying back the money you say was stolen. I make no assertions. I have written evidence. She wants to escape criminal prosecution nevertheless. Before she committed crimes, she ought to have considered it. How much would it take for you to think about letting this go? $11,847 in full payments plus interest. My entire inheritance free of conditions. And a formal apology admitting that she had misled the family about me for years. That's a lot of work. Those are the results of her decisions. The next day, the attorney returned the call. Your conditions are accepted by my client. As simple as that. They were fully folded. I received a $12,200 cashier's check 2 weeks later. They sent me a 2-page handwritten letter from Mom apologizing and confessing to everything, as well as interest and legal possession of my 1/3 portion of the property. The letter was pitiful. Everything about her desperation and how she never intended for things to become this bad. Not a single comment regarding the emotional toll their actions took on me. Just self-pity and excuses. I retained the property deed and the check. The letter was immediately placed in the shredder. Derek texted me the next morning. Yesterday, Tyler arrived at my place of employment and asked if I could lend him the money. Hell no, I told him. They're becoming desperate. Good, I said. Changes are made by desperate individuals. Derek informed me 3 months later that Jessica was working at a restaurant and Tyler had secured a full-time position at a warehouse. Mom was receiving food stamps and had sought for subsidized housing. Now they were grown-ups with lives. It was as simple as shutting off their limitless source of money. I didn't reply to any more communication efforts. I modified my phone number. I deleted them from every social media platform and carried on with my life. The best choice I've ever made. The money I spent to pay for their way of life. I used it as part of my down payment for a home. They'll never be welcome in my place. Particularly when they were constructed under false pretenses, certain bridges are worth destroying.